Did you know that 1 in every 3 people in Japan is older than 65? That's utterly shocking, especially when you compare it to an economy like the US, where only 1 in 8 people are above 65. Adding on to that, Japan's life expectancy is one of the highest in the world. Imagine living in a place where it's pretty common to meet someone in their 90s or even celebrating their 100th birthday. That's a lot of birthday candles. But while it's fantastic that people are living longer, healthier lives, it also brings up some challenges. Think about it. More people in their golden years means there needs to be more healthcare, more support, and most importantly, a major shortage of young population to carry the country forward. But why exactly does this happen? And how will Japan's age crisis affect you if you're not even living there? Come with us as we expose the shocking truth behind this ongoing crisis and tell you why it matters more than you think. So Japan's birth rate is in a bit of a slump, and the workforce is shrinking. Now this isn't just about having fewer people to share memes with. It's about serious stuff, like funding pensions and healthcare for all these folks living into their 90s and beyond. You see, back in the 1980s, Japan was all the rage with its booming economy. Fast forward to now, and the picture's changed quite a bit, with a fertility rate hanging around 1.3. which is way below the 2.1 needed to keep the population stable without bringing in people from other countries. There are now over 9 million elderly workers in Japan, and that number has been climbing for 19 straight years. That's right, more than 13% of the workforce is made up of folks who might have already celebrated their 65th birthday. But here's the real talk. Even with more seniors clocking in for work, it's not quite enough to balance the scales. Japan's Prime Minister, Fumio Kishida, has been pretty upfront about it, saying Japan is teetering on the edge of being able to keep things running smoothly. And it's not just a Japan thing. Neighbors like China, South Korea, Singapore, and Taiwan are feeling the heat too, trying to figure out how to convince younger generations that having kids is a good idea, even when life's getting pricier and stress levels are up. In the island of Oteshima, the population is so low that a 146-year-old school had to close its doors because only 1 student was left to graduate. It was a little lonely, but really fun, said Akino Imanaka, a 15-year-old student. A professor from Yale, Yusuke Narita, literally suggested the idea of mass suicide or mass seppuku for the elderly. Yes, you heard that right. Seppuku is this really intense ritual from way back in the samurai days, where they'd, disembowel themselves to restore honor. He even brought up this scene from a horror movie called Midsummer, where an elderly person jumps off a cliff as part of a ritual. The young people in Japan are even liking this idea. Critics are worried though. They think Narita's extreme talk could influence public policy or shift social norms in a harmful way. Let me take you to where it all began. Post-World War II, Japan experienced a significant baby boom, a common phenomenon seen in many countries following the war's end. This period of heightened birth rates contributed to a surge in the population. In the decades that followed, Japan entered an era known as the economic miracle from the 1950s through the 1970s. During this time, the country underwent rapid industrialization and economic growth, becoming the world's second largest economy. But as of the last 2 decades, the population has only gone down. The first major problem to tackle now is the issue of shrinking workforce. The number was at 75.45 million in 2015, and it now stands at 65 million as of 2022. A key metric I want to tell you about is the dependency ratio. In 2019, for every 100 working-age people, 64 older people who didn't work were dependent on them, and now that number is up to 73. The shrinking workforce has led to labor shortages across various sectors, most notably in healthcare, construction, and agriculture. Japan's healthcare sector is under tremendous pressure as the demand for elderly care services skyrockets, while the number of healthcare professionals fails to keep pace. Similarly, the construction industry, vital for Japan's infrastructure development and maintenance, faces acute labor shortages, impacting the country's ability to undertake large-scale projects and disaster recovery efforts. In response to these challenges, the Japanese government has implemented several measures. One significant policy shift has been the gradual opening up of Japan's immigration policy to alleviate labor shortages. In 2019, Japan introduced a new visa system to attract foreign workers in sectors experiencing acute shortages, a notable departure from its traditionally strict immigration stance. Furthermore, the government has been promoting women's participation in the workforce through its Womenomics initiative, aiming to create a more inclusive labor market. Many companies are extending the retirement age beyond the traditional 60 years to retain older employees longer. But is that really the solution? With the onset of an older population, medical bills are also rising. Diseases like diabetes, dementia, and heart problems have become quite common. Japan spends a whopping 10.9% of its GDP on healthcare, with a significant portion going towards elderly care. And as the population ages, this percentage is only expected to balloon. Now they're resorting to innovation, like using robots and smart monitors to tend to patients. Initiatives like Silver Human Resources Centers are popping up, where seniors can work part-time, keeping them engaged and reducing the burden on healthcare facilities. But what mistakes did Japan make early on, and what can we learn from this crisis? Let's have a look. Mistake number 1. Not addressing the birth rate decline early on. Japan's first hiccup was not acting swiftly enough on its declining birth rate. After the baby boom post-World War II, birth rates started to drop, and now they're among the lowest globally. It's like Japan was so focused on becoming an economic powerhouse that it missed the memo on replenishing its workforce. For context, Japan's GDP growth has been languishing around 1% on average for the past 2 decades, a far cry from the booming years of the economic miracle. The economic fallout from a declining birth rate is multifaceted. For one, consumer spending, which accounts for about 60% of Japan's GDP, is on a downward trajectory as the population shrinks and ages. Additionally, the labor shortage has led to increased labor costs, putting pressure on businesses' profitability and competitiveness. In 2020, Japan's budget for child-related policies was over 2 trillion yen, approximately $18 billion. Yet the needle on the birth rate barely moved. Mistake number 2. Slow to adapt immigration policies. Japan's historically stringent immigration stance has been a double-edged sword. While it's preserved cultural homogeneity, it's also exacerbated the labor shortage problem. As the working-age population dwindles, sectors like agriculture, construction, and nursing care are feeling the pinch, with vacancies outnumbering applicants. Earlier in 2021, the government set a cap of 345,000 foreign workers over 5 years, a modest number compared to the millions of workers needed to fill the gap in the labor market. This cautious approach to immigration is a financial tightrope. While it avoids the immediate fiscal burden of integrating a large number of immigrants, it risks long-term economic stagnation due to labor shortages. Mistake number 3. A late focus on elderly care infrastructure. Japan's reverence for its elderly is commendable, but the country was somewhat caught off guard by the speed at which its population aged. The demand for elderly care surged before the infrastructure was fully in place, leading to a scramble to provide adequate services and facilities. Just like Japan, the US is witnessing its own population aging, though not as rapidly as Japan. The key is to start beefing up elderly care infrastructure now. This includes everything from healthcare facilities specialized in geriatric care to retirement communities that offer a range of services and lifestyle options. Moreover, leveraging technology for remote health monitoring and care can alleviate some of the pressures on physical infrastructure. Think Silicon Valley meets healthcare, creating smart solutions that allow older adults to live independently for longer. This is potentially a goldmine lurking in the shadows, and many companies have already started cashing in on the offer as business starts to catch on. As we look to the future, the global village needs to think ahead, plan with compassion, and innovate. By learning from Japan's journey, other nations can navigate their demographic destinies with wisdom and avoid potential economic and social pitfalls. But what do you think? Is Japan slowly going on a decline? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel.